Hello, and welcome to Good Grief, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief with compassion and humor. I'm Nikki. I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And today I'm so excited to have on another wonderful guest, Mr. Bill Robertson. Bill is a writer from Boston. I have to pronounce it that way. One of my patrons and good friends, Carrie, you're welcome. Bill is from Boston. He's from Boston, Massachusetts, currently living in LA. He actually has a feature film out now. He has some books he's written. He's just such a cool person, but he has quite an interesting story that I was so interested to hear. I say excited. I am excited. I love to talk about grief, which just sounds so odd, but when he reached out to me to be on my show and he told me a little bit about his story, I was like, oh yes, I've been wanting to have somebody on the show to talk about these types of losses for so long. I'm not going to spoil anything. You're going to hear the story yourself here in a moment. But as soon as he reached out to me, I was like, yes, absolutely. I want to have you on my show. Like I said, I've been wanting to have a story like this for quite some time, so I was so happy. But overall, what a cool human being. Bill was such a great person to speak with. So a little caveat, I was not at home when I recorded with Bill. I was house sitting for somebody, and I had some issues with equipment and some things that happening. I also forgot the death deck. It was a bit of a kerfuffle, but we got through it. But the background's different, and some of it might sound a little bit different, but either way, we had such a great conversation. I was like, I'm not rescheduling this because this is going amazing. So anyway, I can't wait for you to hear a story. Before we dive in, as always, please check me out over at patreon.com/Nikki the Death Doula. That is a great way you can support me. All of the money I receive there goes to a fund so that I can provide pro bono work to those who might not be able to afford my services. You can get access to this podcast a week early. You get grief affirmations. You get other bonus content, Q&As. I get to chat with my patrons a lot. So yeah, come on over there and check it out. Little as $1 a month, you can support me. But that's not why you're here. Without further ado, I want you to listen to my conversation with Bill Robertson. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy to have another amazing guest episode this week. I have a lovely human being with quite a bunch of stories to tell us. So, Bill, would you like to introduce yourself briefly? Tell us a little bit about you, where you are in the world, and tell us a little bit about your grief.
Got it. First off, thank you for having me. Yeah, my name is Bill Robertson, and I live in Los Angeles. I'm from Boston originally, so you'll hear the accent if I order tartar sauce or something similar with that type of R on it. It still comes out. It's kind of funny. I'm a writer here in LA. I write for film, TV, the theater, and I have a book out. Um, in regards to grief, just going to say too, I'm 64 years old. I've already lost a lot of friends who have passed before hitting 65,
Mhm.
and they were healthy, much healthier than I am. Um, I lost a partner to AIDS back in 92. My parents passed within 4 months of each other in 2010. After my dad died at 89, and he was working till he was 85. My mom was still working at 85, and she was killed in a car accident 4 months after my dad passed. Um, and just recently, I've lost two of my best friends. One of them swam in the ocean 3 miles every Sunday, had saved over $1 million, was just retiring, got
Oh,
leukemia in May, was dead in December.
oh,
He was someone I traveled with. I've been clean and sober 28 years. He was someone,
congratulations.
yeah, thanks. Yeah, he's someone I had met in sobriety. I've lost a lot of people that have died due to addiction.
Sure.
And of course, during the AIDS epidemic of the 80s and 90s, I was at a funeral all the time. I survived it. I'm negative. I mean, I don't even know how it happened. But I do believe life is not about, it's not about what we do. It's more about how we experience life. And I just believe that's a big part of it. It's what are we experiencing,
Yeah.
and death has been a big part of it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for saying that. I mean, as you know, and my listeners know I'm a death doula, so I'm around death a lot as well. And I mean, this is something I've known for a while. This isn't something this taught me, but it just reiterates all the time when I'm working with people at end of life how important it is to embrace what we have right now while we have it
Yes.
and to experience everything we can and just to appreciate every aspect of life because it's so short and we never know how short it's going to be, right?
No, definitely. And at some point, I just want to mention before I forget, I want to mention Dannion Brinkley and
Okay.
his experience with death. If whenever you want me to tell that story, you let me know. He wrote a book called Saved by the Light, and he died 3 times.
Well, go ahead and
Want me to
tell us
do it
about that.
now?
Yeah, go ahead and tell us
Okay.
about that right now.
Dannion Brinkley, he was he was either, and I apologize, Dannion, if I'm getting this wrong, but he either worked for the CIA or the military, and he's very open about this. He speaks about it at gatherings and things that he was basically responsible for ending people's lives. Okay, lack
Okay.
of a better way of putting it. Um, and he was struck by lightning twice through the phone. Back in the day,
Oh
landlines,
yeah,
lightning storms
yeah.
used to tell you to stay off the phone, turn off
I
your
remember that.
TV, and it came through and it fried him. And this is in his book, so it's all been, and it was turned into a movie. Lifetime turned it into a movie with James Woods. Okay, a few years back.
Mhm.
So Danyon, it took years for him to rehabilitate, and then it happened again, and he truly felt his life had been shifted. He holds the record, or at least this is what he told us, that he holds the record for being dead the longest, 27 minutes. Because he also died on the operating table during a heart attack after having, so it's like 3 times, right? So when he came out of the whole thing, he wrote a book called Saved by the Light, and it's about his experiences on the other side.
Okay.
And what I love about this man, he has dedicated his life to hospice work
Hmm.
and teaching people how to become hospice workers. I don't remember the exact name of the company. I think it has the word rainbow in it.
Okay.
But so my story with him, and this is really important for your listeners, and I tell it to people all the time, and I need to remember it all the time because when life is lifing, also, can I swear or not swear on this?
You can swear, that's fine.
Okay. All right, good. Just in case it comes out, I just wanted to say that. So I took a class with him through the Agape International Spiritual Center that I mentioned to you earlier. I've been attending for over 20 years. And they it was just anyway, he taught this class. And then I saw him like a year or two later. I was at a record release party in Santa Monica, and it was packed, and I was in the back, and the back door opened, and he came in. So I got to have a little one-on-one with him, and he looked exhausted. And he walks with a limp still. He's a Southern boy from Tennessee, so he's got that strong drawl.
Love it.
And yeah, and his politics are not something we're going to talk about. But anyway, so he came in, and I said to him, Daniel, I just want to introduce myself. Hi, my name is Bill. I took one of your classes, and I said, are you okay? And I'm paraphrasing all of this because it was a long time ago. And he said, I just helped two people. I no, the way he put it was, I just took two people over to the other side. That's how he put it. And I'm looking at him. I'm like, he said one was like an 85-year-old man and a woman who was like 65 or whatever. And he said, and I'm pretty tired. So we talked for a little bit, and the music's going on in the front part of the room. And I said to him, if there was one thing that you would want people to know, based on your experience of dying 3 times and writing a book about being on the other side and taking people over to the other side, what would it be? He didn't even hesitate. He goes, I just wish people would understand there's nothing to be afraid of on this side of the veil or on the other.
Mm,
Absolutely nothing to be afraid of.
I love that.
And at the moment, I needed to hear that based on what was lifing in my life.
Right.
And then I remembered, it just amazes me of how many, I call them God shots. You can call them whatever they want, but things that happen, some people go, well, that's a coincidence. Yeah, maybe. But what does that word really mean? You know, the word
Yeah.
coincidence, fate, circumstances, energy happening. I'm from a family of four, my parents, my sister, and myself. And when I was in my 40s, I think it was, we were all having dinner one time, and we had not shared this with each other. Each one of us had had a visitor from the other side. And everyone's experience was different. My dad claims he had an angel sitting at the end of his bed. My mom claims that her mom came to visit her. My sister's, I forgot what my sister's was. And mine was my partner showed up after he died. I was in bed. I had not, sober 28 years. Then I was still using once in a while, but I hadn't been drinking or drugging at all that night.
Yeah.
And I had this nightmare where he had wandered away because at the end he had turned into like an old man overnight. And he wandered away into the woods. And as I found him, a pack of wolves converged on him. And he reached out to me. And I woke up screaming. And I made sure I was awake. And I looked, and my closet door was open. And there was the image of a body, head, arms, legs. It was gray and matter. And I thought maybe it's my bathrobe hanging or something else. And I just kept looking at it, and something told me to get up and walk toward it. Because if you're in the dark and you get closer, it's a lamp or whatever.
Yeah.
No. So I got up and I started towards this, and I was scared to death. Got it. My hair and my arms are standing up right now. And his image stayed there until I got right up on it, and then it dissolved. And his voice came into my head and said, "Bill, I'm okay. I'm okay." And he was like 34, 35 when he died. And I called his mother the next day, Peaches. She goes by Peaches, right? I was like,
I love
Peaches,
that.
this is what happened. That was Timmy. That was Timmy. She was ecstatic. She was just over the moon. And we had that experience together,
Yeah.
and she was a card carrying Baptist. And she said to me, you know, Billy, who am I to judge anybody? My son is my son, and I love him for who he is. She was amazing. And they were from Dayton, Ohio, originally.
Oh, that's not far. I'm from Columbus, so
Oh, okay. The
yeah.
people I met out there when he went into a coma, and I had to go from Boston out there, and all my friends were like, "Don't go, Bill. You're going right into the Bible Belt." People couldn't have been any kinder, any lovelier, any more compassionate. And they knew he was dying of AIDS, and
Yeah.
people were not like, everybody was like, I hope your friend's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the nurses didn't even wear gloves. And this is during
Yeah.
the AIDS epidemic. They were like, I was told not to be compassionate with my patients. I do just the opposite.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, I love these people.
Yeah. I thank you so much for sharing that. And I want to dive into that just a little bit deeper. I met the most lovely woman in my training as a death doula who was doing what we do before we knew what death doulas were during the AIDS epidemic. She was visiting a friend. It might have been her sister. I forgive me, I can't remember her story exactly, but she was with somebody in the hospital. And the next room over was a man who was dying of AIDS. And she was noticing like the nurses wouldn't go in the room, the doctors would stand at the door
Yep,
and talk at him. And he was very much getting into active dying. And so she went in and sat with him every
yep,
single day. And she's like, I just can't believe nobody would talk to this poor man. He was dying alone. His family abandoned him. His friends didn't want to come see him because they were so scared. And and then she started doing that with every AIDS patient she could find. She was sitting with
yep.
them and she started a little nonprofit program to find volunteers to go sit with these people who are dying of AIDS because they were alone. And that breaks my heart, which is
It
one of the reasons
totally,
I do
yeah.
that.
There's a million stories. There were some people that were literally thrown out on the streets and died in the streets.
Hmm.
You know, it was there were a lot of people that did a lot of great work back then to help people, like that woman that you spoke to,
Yeah.
and different some churches, not all of them, but like the Unitarians, they took people in,
Hmm.
they helped people. Yeah, it's crazy how we treat other human beings and how we treat animals. You know, I met a mystic from Ghana named Malidoma Patrice Samé. He's written a couple books. He's passed away. He believed that the level of consciousness on the planet goes trees, animals, humans, and that the third one is always trying to overtake the other two. Trees give out unconditional love because they give out oxygen.
Hmm.
Animals live within the cycles of nature,
Hmm.
and humans have a friggin' ego
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
that's
Um,
based on fear of death.
mhm.
So,
It's
as a
true.
death doula, you're doing some important work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the biggest things I do is just helping people get past or as close to past that fear as they can because we're aware of our own mortality, so we
But
fear it
but
because
you
of
know
our
but
ego.
here's the hypocrisy of it. Every single religion or spiritual center all talk about how great it is on the other side.
Hmm.
So why why is everybody, I mean, we should all be running to the gate to get to the other side just based on what they're saying. I'm not saying that we
Yeah,
do that. But like I was at a supermarket the other day, and this happened to me a couple times. So now I kind of do it on purpose. Women will say, "So how you doing today?" Oh, the guy, and I'll say, "I'm still alive," and they'll say, "Well, better than the alternative." And I look at them and I go, "How do you know that?" And a couple of them have gone, "What do you mean?" I said, "How do you know that? That
yeah,
it's better than the alternative?"
yeah.
And they look at me, and then we get it because if you think about it, we celebrate birth
Hmm.
and we should be celebrating death, and many cultures do.
Yeah,
Indigenous tribes know much more than we do.
yeah. Yeah, I've talked about that a little bit on the show, and we don't need to get in that right now, but I've done entire episodes on how different cultures view death and dying, and
Yeah,
it's some of them get it so right, and we're not the only ones that get it so wrong, but we get it so wrong.
we get it so wrong.
But I want to hear a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your partner. Like what was life like with him? And
Oh, with him.
yeah,
We weren't together for a long time. We were together for about 3 years.
okay.
And when I met him, I didn't know he was HIV positive, and he um, he didn't tell me right away. And he was healthy as a horse, so I didn't think anything of it. And then when he told me that he was, I debated on what to do, and then I thought he's one of the nicest people I've ever met. So I'm going to go down this path. I made a choice, and he was one of the most loving people. And then he got sick pretty, not quick, but within a year. And then he'd end in the hospital, and then he'd be okay, and then he would let him. And when he died, the doctors said to me, "Bill, he's had AIDS for a long time," because there was a difference between being HIV
Yeah.
and having AIDS. Well, I guess he had tuberculosis of the blood,
Huh.
and it took a toll on him. And but he was one of those people that when it came to Christmas time, you know, he would get me things that meant something.
Hmm.
Like, I work in the entertainment industry, and I was directing a sketch comedy show at the time out of New York and out of Boston. And he got me a director's chair with my name on it. And he got me a nice carrying case so I could hold scripts in it. And then he got me white socks because he knew I needed socks. That's a partner. You know what I mean? That's a partner. And at one point, I was thinking about breaking up with him, not because of, he was healthy and then when he got, I couldn't. I had heard too many horror stories about people abandoning their partners.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm like, that's not how I was raised. I'm not going to do that. And we'll deal with what life throws at us.
Hmm.
And like you had mentioned, the doctor's standing in the doorway. I mean, he got sick in Boston. they're supposed to have the best medical community on the planet. And they had signs on his door, quarantine. Nobody was going to catch anything from him. They were worried about, him catching something. But he was on so many meds, it was like a barrier. He wasn't going to catch anything because I even asked the doctors. But the people who were taking care of him or coming in to clean the room did not speak English, and they did not take the time to explain to them in their language that you're going to be okay. So
Hmm.
they'd leave his food outside the room. He couldn't walk.
Yeah.
And I'd get there and I'm like, what's his food doing out here? And the room wasn't cleaned. I was like Shirley MacLaine in terms of endearment. I was, like where she ran around. She needs
Yeah.
her shot now. I was like, listen, give me a bucket and a mop, and I'll clean the damn room. And they were like, oh my God. I'm like, come on, people, what are you
Yeah.
doing? I mean, Dayton,
Seriously.
Ohio was a totally different experience. I walked, he was black, and I walked into his room in the middle of the Bible Belt, and there were five black Baptist ministers there who turned around and looked at me and said, you must be Tim's friend Bill. And everybody extended their hands to me.
Oh.
I went into a diner like Alice. Remember the old TV show
Oh yeah, I
Alice?
love that show.
And I'm sitting at the thing because they put me in a little motel nearby, and then his stepdad would come and pick me up. Thomas, who was tongue-tied. I'd never heard anyone who was tongue-tied, so it was hard to understand what he was saying, but he was the most loving man. And so I'm eating at the diner. It's like a truck stop. And the guy next to me goes, oh, you're new in town. You know, what are you doing? I said, I'm visiting a friend in the hospital. He goes, car accident? I said, no, AIDS. And he didn't bat an eye, And we all talked, and the waitress and the cook behind it was just like Mel's place on Alice.
Oh.
And when I went to leave, that trucker turned around, and the waitress stopped what she was doing, and the cook, and another person at the table, and he said, "Listen, Bill, I hope your friend's okay." God, it makes me want to cry right now.
Yeah.
And everyone else was waving goodbye. I'm like, what's going on? Am I in an episode of Alice? It was just bizarre.
Yeah.
And then when he slipped into a coma and I slept in his room, and I'm sure the death rattle
Yeah.
is something that is I'll never forget.
Yeah.
And I remember a nurse standing on one side of the table and me on the other. And she was the one who said, I'm more compassionate than ever. She was crying and I was crying.
Mhm.
And then I left and I didn't want to watch him die. And he died like the next day.
Yeah. Oh.
That was brutal. It was
Oh
just,
yeah.
and then I watched the movie when I got home. I watched the movie Defending Your Life with Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep.
Love that movie.
I've seen it like 15 times, but I cried so hard the first time I watched it. I called my sister. I cried for over a half hour, like nonstop crying.
Hmm.
And it has one of the best endings in all of film. I mean, with that music and
Yeah.
Let Him Go, you're like,
Oh,
oh. And if anyone hasn't seen Defending Your Life, find
so
it
good.
and rent it.
So good. So
It's my
good.
favorite Meryl Streep film,
Oh,
actually.
she's a treasure.
Yeah,
So y- you lost your partner back in the 90s, and then you lost both your parents very close together,
yeah,
right? So and yeah, tell us just a little bit about that. And you've lost like pets and also you
yeah,
experienced a lot.
yeah. Um, my parents, I'm going to throw it back to 1972. They both almost died within 4 months of each other in 1972. My dad had his first heart attack, and my mom had taught in a part of town where she ended up picking up hepatitis, and it was just, and it was so bad that we watched her eyes roll up in the back of her head. Her fever was crazy, and that was 4 months after my dad had gotten out of the hospital. My sister's 10 years. I'm going to lose both my parents when I was 12. And and that's when I started drinking and drugging back
Oh my
then. And
gosh.
yeah, and then I got sober at 36. But oh, we were dealing, we were doing a lot of stuff back in the 70s in Attleboro, Massachusetts. But anyway, and then Fast forward to 2010, and they died within 4 months of each other. My
Wow.
dad had stopped working at around 85, 86, and then he died at 89, like heart problem, and he had had numerous heart attacks over the years. He was like an Energizer bunny, and that's what we would call him, but he was ridiculous with it too. Like he would get out of the hospital, and 3 days later he's rowing a boat, or he's climbing up on the roof. He
Yeah.
fell off the roof and broke his back at one point. I'm like, what are you doing? Just you're just nuts. And oh, and the last time I saw him, he was in hospice in Chatham, Massachusetts, right down the street from where they lived. There was a
Yeah.
place that was able to do that. So my mom could walk, and I could go back and visit and walk and see him every day for breakfast and then go back again for dinner and such. So the nurses had said Billy could last another week or two. He could go tomorrow, and I had to come back to LA. And he was sitting up in his chair and he was very weak, but he liked to flirt. And my dad never cheated on my mom. They were married for 64 years. I'd even quiz him about it because he went in on D-Day and he was over, in Europe during the war. I'm like, come on, you must have hooked up with somebody, right? No, Bill, how dare you? He was just like, and he was engaged to my mom for 4 years while he was overseas. Like before he left on D-Day, they had gotten engaged, or before he left to go to Europe. Um, so he would flirt with the nurses, and he was totally harmless. And I heard as I'm walking down the hallway, and I had rounded the corner, I heard a nurse go, "Mr. Robertson." So I went and I peeked my head around the corner, and he was sitting in the chair right here, and he just looked at me, and he had such a shit-eating grin on his face. He was like, "Yep, I said something." And that was my last visual of him. And then, it devastated my mom. Just, she was, they were each other's best friends. The biggest things they fought about, and they would bicker, but what they didn't realize, they were really bickering about who loved each other the most. They'd get in fights over food. You
Yeah.
know, we had a great meal last night and they served corn. No, it was peas. No, it was corn. It was just like, all right, why don't you guys arm wrestle about it? And then my mom called me, and she would have, and it's weird, I have the same thing at times. She would have night terrors, and I have night terrors. And I look
Yeah.
just like her, except for her beard was longer than mine. No, I'm kidding. But she had three miscarriages before she had me. So the guy who invented the test tube baby, remember that
Mhm.
from like
Yeah.
Wake Up? He worked on her in order
Okay.
to hold me, and I was 10 pounds at birth. So it was just I was big. Um, she had these the day before my dad's funeral. I was at the house on the Cape. That's where they were going to retire and never did because they needed the money. They were very blue collar, and that's what I was raised.
Okay.
And that's the work ethic that they gave me, which is fantastic. And I'm very blessed to have had them as my parents. Um, Even when I came out, my dad cried for like 2 weeks, and then they joined PFLAG, Parents for Lesbians and Gays. And if he ever heard me mention a woman's name, it was so funny. Like if I said, "Oh, it was just on a podcast with Nikki." Nikki, who's Nikki? I'm like, Jesus, Dad, give it a break, will
Dad.
you? Yeah. But so she had this nightmare the night before his service, and she threw herself out of the bed, hit her face on a bureau,
Mhm.
looked like Mike Tyson had beat her up. I
Oh,
had the ambulance there at like 3 in the morning. So we show up at the service and she's all beaten up,
yeah.
you know, and um and she would have these nightmares. And now she was living by herself. The dogs had passed also. And she was still working at the Candy Manor in Chatham, Massachusetts, making chocolate,
Hmm.
which she had done for like 25 years. She called me after I got back here and said, "I want to come out and visit you and your dogs, and then I'm ready to go." And we were like, no, Mom, don't worry. We're going to take care of you. We're going to work it out. My sister, myself had it all planned. She was going to spend time with me in LA and then go to, it was all mapped out. And then 2 weeks later, she was killed in a car accident.
Oh my God.
I had done over my back bedroom. This is where she was going to stay. I was going to have
Yeah.
railings put up, the whole thing. And they couldn't travel out here because my dad had an aneurysm in his leg for like years that they said,
Mhm.
I didn't want to get on a plane. It could be a problem. And
Right.
he didn't like to travel anyway. So, and she was fearful of a lot of things. But I remember her telling me that. And I remember my sister calling me that day, and it was just like in the movies. Billy, you sitting down? And I knew. I just
Mhm.
knew, you know.
Yeah.
And how people responded to it was very different. It was weird. One of my neighbors who I don't talk to anymore, I was like lost. I was wandering around my neighborhood like, what do I do? I don't even know what to do. And I saw her with her now ex-husband. There's a reason why. And I said to her, my mom was just killed in a car accident. And he hugged me. And she had been in an argument with him about something or had something to say. And she looked at me and she goes, Bill, people die on the day my mom was killed in a car accident. I couldn't get over how cold that was,
Hmm.
you know? And since her passing, the universe shows up in a way that I encounter a lot of people who have just lost loved ones. And I'm able to say to them, I understand how you feel.
Yeah.
And they know either they know my story or I tell them.
Yeah.
And the irony, once again, God shot, irony. We held on to the house for a while. We rented it out. And then my sister finally called me and said, Bill, I'm ready to sell. And I was like, well, about time. We sold it just before COVID.
Oh wow.
My sister's name is Gail. My mom's name was Janet. The people who bought, the last couple who stayed there was a mother and daughter and a husband and mother. The mother's name was Janet and the daughter's name was Gail. The last people who rented that house. And when we sold the house to the sister of the whose brother bought the Candy Manor. They took my mom's apron, and it is behind glass, sitting above her workstation at the Candy Manor in Chatham, Massachusetts. It's way up high.
Yeah.
And I had some friends that went there just to see it. And they talked to these young people who were working there over the summer. And they said, can we see? And they were like, what are you talking about? And they asked them, isn't there yeah, there is. Who is that? We always wondered who that was. They were able to tell these young people the story.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. Oh,
And
that's
I need to remember these things when life is lifing
yeah.
and remember that. And I heard this the other day. I need to trust my life
I
of how
like
it unfolds. I need
yeah.
to trust my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I have nothing else to add to that. That you said that so succinctly. So, wow. Well, before we get to the last little bit, I have one further question. Like you and I chatted a little bit before we started recording, and we've been talking here for about a half hour now, and you have just taken all these losses in stride, and you seem like you are thriving from my point of view. So you even said just trust your life. What advice would you give to somebody who might have experienced like 4 or 5 losses in a row, or just like getting that point where like I don't know how much more of this death I can take? What would you say to them?
It, losing my dogs most recently, and my parents died a little while ago, has been one of the hardest parts of my life. I've had animals in my life for 40 years, and now I don't at all. I'm like stalking my neighbor's pets, I'm taking care of a feral cat.
Oh,
Um, and I have to admit, grief has been the underlying thing that has made life harder for me right now. Am
mhm.
I thriving? Yes, in a lot of ways I am. Um, what I have to come to terms with is the processing. of grief. And the best advice I can give anyone is one, don't let anyone tell you how long you are to grieve for.
Mhm.
When people are like, "Oh, get over it," oh no, tell them to get over it.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, slap them across the face. No, I'm
yeah.
kidding. But you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
I still when my mom died, I used to cry in the supermarket,
Hmm.
always in the produce section. I don't know what that means, but anyway, but I would break down and then I thought about it. It took me back to when, as a little kid, I'd go shopping with my mom,
Hmm.
you know? So I guess the best thing I can say for me, what has really helped has been reading and embracing it and understanding that death is all a part of it and it's one big cycle. And once I wrap my brain around it, but Pima Chodron's book about when everything falls apart,
Hmm.
heartfelt solutions, it really helped me a lot. Pima children's book, agapelive.com, really helped me a lot. Members of you know, I'm not supposed to mention the name because it's a tradition, but the recovery group that I'm a part of,
Hmm.
those people showed up,
Yeah.
and prayer and meditation. And I think it's whatever works for you. Walking a lot
Yeah.
really works for me. Sitting at the ocean helped
Oh,
me a lot, a
yes.
lot. My
Yes.
backyard now, I don't have a big backyard, but it's like Wild Kingdom back there right now. I have a Chinese elm tree and all kinds of plants and flowers and bumper gardens. The squirrels come and sit near me when I'm meditating now. The hummingbirds are everywhere. And I do believe that there's something to it. I was meditating, asking the universe to show me a sign of whether or not I am connected or disconnected. And I opened my eyes, and right in front of me, within a foot, was a hummingbird just hovering
Hmm.
and flew off. And I went, okay, thank you. I got it. I got it. We're all part of it.
Yeah.
And I think studying that, it helps me. Like I have so many friends that are so afraid of death.
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm not afraid of death at all. I'm afraid of suffering. I
Sure.
don't want to get sick. I watched friends of mine really go through hell. Um, and it's harder, I think, for the ones of us that are here.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
how many times have we heard story after story after story of where someone had a visitor come from the other side? Or Daniel Brinkley's story,
Yeah.
his book, Saved by the Light. Betty Eady wrote a book called Embraced by the Light.
Yeah. I've read that one.
Oh, so good. I read
Yeah.
the both at the same time. And Danyon, so matter of fact, there's absolutely nothing to be afraid of on this side or the other.
Oh, all right. Oh, I love that. So I have a tradition at the end of my episodes, and I warned you ahead of time.
Oh
I'll warn
yes.
my listeners now. I pull a random card from the death deck. However, I am not at home right now. I'm house sitting for somebody, and I forgot to bring the death deck with me. So I asked my good buddy ChatGPT to give me a random question about death and dying. And I'm going to ask you that, and then I'll let you answer, and then I will answer because fair is fair. So the question it gave me was, if you could send one message post-death to your loved ones, what would it be?
My parents and myself were okay. Um, to Tim, my partner, I'm sorry that I wasn't clean and sober when you were going through that. I mean, I think I took very good care of him. I think I would have made even better decisions if I had been clean and sober when he was going through it. I was part of a support group of people that were of caretakers. We were all taking care of our partners dying of AIDS. And in one of the meetings, there were like nine of us in the group. Three of us lost our partners all at once. And the people that ran it said, you need to do whatever you have to do to survive.
Mhm.
So all of us, we drank, we drugged, you know, whatever we had to do, and I look back at that and I understand that. And the counselors were even more upset I mean, we were upset, but they were like devastated that we were losing our partners. And
Yeah.
that would be the only thing I really wish I had gotten, because I didn't get sober till 97. So it was 5 years after he passed. And I mean, I wasn't in blackouts or, leaving him by himself, nothing like that. But I just wish
Sure.
I had been, because I think I would have been better prepared.
Mhm. Okay. So my answer, because I have to answer this too, I'm torn because I would love to say something like, I am okay and everything is like, there's nothing to be afraid of. Like he said, nothing to be afraid of on this side or that side. But I'm also a diehard smartass. So, and kind of a jokester. So I would probably pass along a message that made absolutely no sense just to befuddle everybody or a cryptic warning of like, don't leave the house on the 7th of December for no reason whatsoever other than to mess with their heads.
Oh, that's funny. That's very funny, actually. Yeah.
So I know you gave this eloquent answer, and then here I am being a smartass, but that's who I am, and I will not
No,
apologize for that.
but you're being honest,
It's true.
rigorously honest.
It's
That's what
true.
we're here for.
Oh, Bill, this has been amazing. I can't thank you enough for sharing your story. You are such a lovely delight, and I'm so glad I got to chat with you. Um,
It's
if
my
anybody
pleasure.
out there wants to reach out to you, is that okay? And how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, no, it is okay. I'm on Facebook. I can't tell you off the top of my head what it is. My last name is Robertson. There's two dogs on my Facebook thing still. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I think it's me holding my two dogs on that
Okay.
picture. Um, I have a book called Uncle Bill's Animal Tales: Life Lessons for Adults, is on Amazon.
Okay.
I do have a feature film right now, but we're working with another distributor, and that'll be coming out in the fall, and that's called Paradise: A Town of Sinners and Saints. It's actually a musical comedy based on a live show that ran here in LA. But my contact information is on there also through IMDb, which
Okay.
is the Internet Movie Database,
Yes. Awesome.
So I'm kind of open, and you'll find my email address there. So, um, yeah, I mean, we're all in this thing together.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean we have to be best friends with everybody, and it
That's
doesn't
true.
mean we can't have boundaries,
That's true.
but we can pass along information of what our experiences have been if it's going to help somebody else.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much. And I will put those links that Bill referenced down in the description so you can click away. So thank you so much, Bill. This has been
Thank you.
amazing.
I truly enjoyed it myself.
All right. Thank you again, Bill, so much for being on my show. I was so grateful to talk to you. A little starstruck, not gonna lie. Although it's cool that we both knew and met Ted Neely. I only met him once. Sounds like he knew him. And anyway, fangirling over here a little bit. Bill, thank you so much for taking the time to be on my show. I hope you enjoyed listening to that. His contact information, everything he mentioned, should be down in the chat. If you want some more information about me and what I can do to help you, please head on over to nikkithedeathdoula.com. I do have a subpage on my website. You click on the top, there's things that says podcast. There's some information on the guests that have been on my show. I have merch for sale, like this t-shirt behind me, mugs, journals, some great stuff on there. Please go check that out as well. These are all great ways to help support me. Patreon.com is a great way. That, again, is so I can provide pro bono work out in the community. The best thing you can do if you enjoyed this, leave me a 5-star rating and write a little review if you're on Apple Podcasts. That is the best way for more people to find my show. Preferably a 5-star. Lower than that tends to bury me, so let's not do that. This is a labor of love. I don't make money from this. I just want to help provide some companionship through podcasting to those who might be experiencing grief and loss and feeling alone in that. So that's why I'm here. All right, you can also find me over on Substack. I've got my blog and some other content over there. A lot of great stuff to check out on Substack. Don't really do social media much anymore. Yeah, that's all. Thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. And remember, as always, grief is yours. Your feelings are valid. Grief doesn't always have to suck. Good Grief with Nikki the Death Doula is produced by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC in Columbus, Ohio. Nikki the Death Doula LLC is for consulting, education, emotional support, and guidance, and is no way considered a funeral establishment or licensed mental health establishment. Scripts, editing, sound design, literally everything with this podcast is done solely by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC, with the exception of the music. The music is Cheery Monday by Kevin MacLeod. Licensing information can be found at filmmusic.io.